Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
The next 25 minutes or so, we are joined by constitutional law expert Bruce Fein. Then I'm going to go back to your calls and into the Iran situation, threatening to block off the Strait of Hormuz, the admitted Western military attacks inside the country. We told you months ago that's what was happening. Now it's admitted. It was really going on years ago, but now it's accelerated. We'll also get into what's happening with the economy. But Bruce Fein joins us. He's a lawyer who specializes in constitutional international law. And, of course, he's written articles for Slate, New York Times, Legal Times, The Washington Times. He's an expert on civil liberties. He's involved with the American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation, both conservative think tanks, as an analyst and commentator. And, of course, he's also an author. He is Ron Paul's chief legal advisor on the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And AmericanFreedomAgenda.org is one of his sites. And he joins us now to talk about the State of the Union. Going back when he was on with us, 4 or 5 months ago, we talked about Obama launching military operations and saying he didn't need Congress to do that he, quote, did it for the credibility of the UN. I mean, what a slap in the face, what treason. That he became the head of the Security Council, violating Article 1, Section 9, flaunting it. The news even admitted that. Now we enter a new phase, and Obama says he'll veto the sections of the National Defense Authorization Act where the military can arrest U.S. citizens. The whole world's a declaration of war against the world, kill anybody anywhere, including Northcom here in the U.S. So all of that's in there. But Obama came out and said, I may not sign it because I'm the president and I have that authority to kill citizens outside of law or courts or anything, anywhere in the world. So I don't need Congress. So the media tried to spin it as, oh, Obama's for the Bill of Rights, Constitution. No, the press release his lawyers put out last week, we covered it here, said something entirely different. We'll get Bruce Fein's breakdown on this and get his take on the Ron Paul campaign. Bruce, thanks for coming on with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Wow, things are really accelerating. Were you shocked by this legislation? And give us your expert take on it and where this takes us.
Yes, and I wanted, let's take it from how we interpret the president's threat to veto. This is before the legislation was passed by the Congress. The president claimed, as you indicated, authority unilaterally to assassinate any American anywhere in the world on his say-so alone based upon secret facts, secret laws saying so-and-so is an imminent danger to the security of the United States. You don't have to be on a battlefield. You don't have to be involved in hostilities. You don't even have to be accused of a crime because Mr. Al-Awlaki had never been indicted. He'd never been subject to any even formal arrest warrant, anything like that. Neither was his 16-year-old kid who was vaporized a few days later. I mean, this is a power that would have made King George III jealous, and we overthrew King George III. This is a power that every tyrant would crave and celebrate. I can kill any of my citizens anytime I want based upon secret facts and secret law. And on imminent danger, I mean, he'd been on the list, Al-Awlaki, for over a year. And imminent danger, I mean, imminent means it's going to happen immediately. It shows the Orwellian use of language by the Obama administration. That's before. He also claimed the absolute authority to decide on his own whether if he did capture an American citizen or a non-citizen in the United States based upon some suspicion that he said shows involvement in international terrorism, he could decide on his whim. I'll try you in a civilian court and prosecute you, or I'll try you in a military court, military commissions and prosecute you. I can just flip one way or the other, and you can't constrain me. That was before the legislation. So what he objected to in the legislation wasn't the idea that no president should have this omnipotent authority. He was furious that Congress thought it had any say to try to constrain him in any way, because Congress was trying to limit his ability to flip detainees from the military system to the civilian system. So he wasn't defending civil liberties. He was destroying the last vestige of checks and balances and separation of powers by saying, Congress, you have no authority to try to limit me in any way I want whenever I claim I'm fighting a war. I am the law. It's like Louis XIV, the state, c'est moi. It's me. I know the press, instead of understanding that, thinks now he's become an ACLU civil libertarian by vetoing the legislation.
Incredible. That's what's so amazing. He's saying, no, because you're trying to follow the Constitution, even though this is unconstitutional, the way you're trying to pass it's constitutional.
Right.
I'm not going. And his lawyers said that, and the media went along with this. Bruce, do you think it's because they are ignorant or because they want to protect him?
Well, I think it's a combination. Several of them I think, truly are just totally ignorant. But others, clearly, they want to, they do not like Congress, and this is a way in which they can try to paint Congress, the do-nothing Congress, whatever. That in part here, it's not a do-nothing Congress. They do not like the Tea Party conservative slant in the Congress, although this is the opposite of that. And so this is just another chance to slam the Congress of the United States, certainly when they see something that isn't that slights Obama. But a lot of it is just lavishness to the president. And I think also it's unfortunate that it's not limited to Obama. I think the press in general has become cheerleaders for kings and queens, for omnipotence in the executive branch, and assailing any suggestion that self-government really ought to have any sway, because after all, these platonic guardians in the White House and the Oval Office should tell us how to live. You know, whether we should have spinach or broccoli, and rules and regulations that Congress never touches that have enormous consequences for the economy. It is a very, very arrogant, condescending attitude of government, the precise attitude that provoked the American Revolution in 1776. I mean, the Founding Fathers, if they saw this piece of legislation, the president asserting that power, they would have impeached the president in less than 24 hours.
Bruce, obviously the system knows that the derivatives, the too big to fails, the crony capitalism is coming down, and we're seeing an acceleration of agendas that you and I and Ron Paul and many others had warned about and been laughed at. Now people aren't laughing. I mean, does it have to get really bad before it gets better? Where do you expect this to go? I mean, do you expect them to be able to implement stuff like this? I mean, this does tell us a lot about the makeup of our government, that they're attempting things like this.
Well, it does. And it also, the most dangerous element here is what's become maybe a subtext of our national discourse, a risk-free society. Anything that anybody says will make us safer is okay. The rack and screw, if it results in vandalizing due process, detaining people without accusation or charge, anything you just yell, it makes us possibly safer, even though it doesn't. They get away with it. And that's just the opposite of what the Constitution is about. The default position that the Founding Fathers wanted, that was revolutionary at the time, was that individual liberty is the default. The government can't do anything unless it gives a really strong reason about why they should interfere with your physical and mental liberty and freedom. It doesn't mean an insurmountable hurdle, but that's the default position is liberty. Now, no, just make the government bigger, 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 TSA, more screening, whatever. Anything goes that will arguably make us safer. You got to have some risk in life. It takes risk when you get out of bed, Somebody could come up and drive a car when you're on the sidewalk.
Well, Bruce, as you know, historically, I'd like you to speak to this briefly. Tyrants always say it's for your own good, and historically, the greatest danger outside of natural death, the most unnatural death that we've seen, has been death by government or enslavement or impoverishment by government. I mean, this is the most dangerous thing, as George Washington said, like fire, government is a dangerous servant and a fearful master.
That's exactly right. And that's why, and it's not to say that individuals can't perpetrate evil. They can. But in magnitudes of danger, the government is capable of vastly more wretchedness, destruction of liberty, death, than any private individual or group of individuals. And that's why the government is the one where the greatest scrutiny has to be put upon. And it was James Madison, just think about this, this is over 200 years ago. He pointed out and he warned. He said the instruments of repression that are used initially to fight a foreign danger are invariably used by tyrants to destroy liberty at home. This is the greatest prescience that had ever been uttered by an American statesman. He knew exactly what's going to happen. So first, okay, we're just going to use these special procedures in Afghanistan, and then Iraq, then Yemen, then Somalia. And now they're on the American soil. And what I fear, Alex, is that if there's anything like another 9/11, or even somebody who stands up and says, all right, Iran's got nuclear weapons, a president's going to declare martial law. The liberty's going to be over. Okay, we have military commissions, and I'll restore the Constitution when I think it's safe. And I'm fearful right now we have an American culture that's so effete in its defense of individual liberty that the president would get away with it.
Well, Bruce,
Bruce, on the street,
as you know, that's what the entire architecture. I'm going to skip this network break here, so stations shouldn't cover this up. It's a network break. I'm going to skip it. We only got you at the bottom of the hour, and this is so important. Constitutional law expert, congressional expert, Ron Paul's main advisor on legal issues, constitutional lawyer, Bruce Fein. He's also an author. Bruce, let's shift gears in the same area, but shifting gears, look at Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich has been attacking Ron Paul, calling him a joke. Donald Trump's been calling him a joke, when Donald Trump is a joke by any yardstick. Mr. Eminent Domain, Mr. Democratic Party contributor who claims he's a Republican, clearly a ringer. But Newt Gingrich has now been endorsed by the former Federal Reserve head of Kansas City, Herman Cain. And Newt Gingrich, who is for indefinite detention, torture, all of this, who's for carbon taxes, who's for all these different globalist things, he is now the front runner. Ron Paul's admitted #2 now in Iowa and other states. What's your view on Newt Gingrich and what's wrong with mainline Republicans, or do you think these polls are a fraud? How could any conservative with half a brain like Newt Gingrich?
I don't know. This guy is the epitome of inside the Beltway cynicism. He'll say one thing one day, the other the next day. He exploits all the political chicanery known to mankind. A historian for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, $40–50 million that that he gets out for lobbying Congress on his health care issue. He's an egomaniac. He cheats on his wife. He claims that he's great for frugality, and he has a Tiffany's bank account of $500,000 and utilizes nonprofit organizations to benefit his political campaign. I mean, and he spouts anything under the sun, no matter how glib yet absurd they are. I mean, his statement, for example, the president should flout decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court if they think they're wrong. Wow, that's really something. This is somebody who is talking about Ron Paul as being a joke. This guy would destroy the greatest conception of all constitutions in the history of the world, judicial review, in 1787. And not the whim of Newt Gingrich. No, the president can just the heck with the Supreme Court. And you see how absurd that is, because he's at the same time saying, oh, if the Supreme Court declares the health care bill unconstitutional, then it should fall. But at the same time, he's basically saying, well, Obama could just ignore it and implement his health care anyway. I mean, the guy is a total intellectual jumble of contradictions and cynicism. And I believe that the only reason that explains his rise is that he's not Mitt Romney. And Mitt is so statuesque. He's so off-putting as a candidate. They're sort of scrambling, the Republicans are, for somebody else, and Newt is the candidate for that particular time. But I believe as more of these warts in Newt become more known and prominent, he will fall like a shooting star and a comet out of the sky and be destroyed, because his character is so flawed that it simply cannot withstand a sustained public scrutiny.
Wow, Bruce Fein is on fire. Amazing analysis, absolutely on target. Looking at Newt Gingrich, it's like shark teeth. All these different politicians come forward. The public learns about them. They fall away. We've seen it with Perry, with Romney, with Newt, with Bachmann, with all of them. Only Ron Paul has stayed #1, #2, or #3 in every straw poll, every scientific poll. He now is, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Ron Paul supporter, I'm always a realist, he really is the front runner in all the big polls. He beats Obama handily. I mean, he is the man. He should be our next president. He's been dead on about why we're in so much trouble. He's the only candidate that will actually address it. And if we don't elect Ron Paul, if the power structure doesn't elect Ron Paul, I mean, as corrupt as the power structure is, they can't just keep robbing and stealing. They're going to kill the golden goose. Yeah. Your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. But the history of empires is a history of self-ruination. But I certainly agree with your assessment of Ron Paul. And this is what I can say with 100% first-hand certainty. He is the only candidate who's not running for self-aggrandizement. He's he's the only candidate who's not driven by egomania. He's the only candidate that we know when he's in the Oval Office and he makes a decision, it will be based upon what he thinks are best for the nation and those yet to be born. It won't be based upon the next day's polls or political maneuvering or footprints in the sand of time or anything like that.